UniverSoul Women. I'm Sherryl Lin.
And I'm Julie Krull, and we're gathering to really ignite radical cultural change. And that means a lot, Sherryl Lin. We've been talking about fun topics, and I'm going to pass the torch to you to introduce this one, but I'm in this place of this new area of my life. I am a new grandma. And my granddaughter is 1, and I will soon have more grandbabies on the way. So, saying that,
it's a great thing. I'm not sure whether I will have the joy of being a grandma. I might have to adopt some grandkids. But I was thinking about this topic because a friend of mine, she called me up, and she's a little bit older. She's in her early 60s, and she said she had realized something, that she actually was grieving the loss of her youth. And I thought, and she said, wait till you turn 60, you'll see. And I thought, well, she and I are very different, and maybe not. But I started thinking about aging and how we as women think about it for ourselves, and how it can feel very disempowering, like we become invisible. And I've heard this from a lot of older women, that they all of a sudden our society doesn't really value it the way other cultures do. In the United States, it really isn't. Older women aren't held in as high esteem as certainly older men. So that's part of it. But I realized that I don't know where I heard this, and we'll look it up and see. But that because we're living longer, there is like this in-between stage before you get to the actual crone stage, where you're the wise old woman. There's an in-between stage where we're kind of in this limbo. It's like menopausal age-ish. I won't say an exact age, where we still have life to live, but there's kind of like this feeling of, okay, now what? And where do I fit? And I was reminded of this story, Julie, of my aunt, who I love, my Auntie Mare, who, when she got to be, I think she was either 60 or close to 60, and she came to my sister-in-law and I and said that she was passing the torch for holiday gatherings and family reunions, that it was our turn to like take on the organizing everything, and that she wasn't going to do it anymore. And we were bummed out, not because we had to do the work, but because she seemed so vibrant still, and a lot of life in her. But I realized she started having this queenliness, is what I call it. And this to me is that in-between stage, this queenliness, this regal feeling of, I've earned the right to, sit back a little bit, not stop living, but sit back a little bit and begin to pass the torch. And I think that is something that we don't acknowledge, that there are these generational legacies that we're passing on, and we don't have a lot of ritual around it traditionally. And so that topic came up when you were talking about your grandkids. It seemed like a perfect time to kind of address this. Like, how do we move forward in our lives as we age, but also, in how we view the younger generations coming next?
The idea of cultural traditions, I think that's an important piece. And so when we talk about radical cultural change, you brought up 2 things that I think are important. Number 1, the value of the crone and the queen, if you're going to call the in-between stage, the in-between and the crone, the cultural value, the breadth and depth of wisdom right there. It's like we do need to figure out how to honor that voice, that woman. So yes is number 1, cultural piece. But also, when you were talking about the traditions of how do we mark this ritualistically of these passages. When my only grandchild is a granddaughter, and she was born a year ago, and when she was born, You know, everybody's, oh, it's the best thing ever. You know, you just can't imagine. It's going to be amazing. And in my mind, I interpreted everyone's enthusiasm on a fun baby, a fun child, a fun, you know, like having your children have children. So in my mind, I had all these ideas of what I really thought that was supposed to mean, being a grandma. You know, you spoil them and you send them home. But what happened for me, and I don't know that it's a unique experience, but for me, I've never heard anyone speak of this. What happened for me when she was born and I saw her the first time, moments after her birth, was this expansion into this lineage, the cultural lineage. So all of a sudden, it was like a door opened to the next 7 generations. And it became really a concrete and specific thread path forward to the 7 generations. It was like, it became so visceral that who we are today, and I'm just going to speak for women because this is Universal Women, and hopefully we have lots of men watching this too, but who we are today on the planet as men and women, our thoughts, words, and deeds matter. And, you know, we've been talking about rethinking everything, you know, rethink everything, question everything, look at why we always do what we always done. Like there's a saying, if you always do what you always done, you always get what you always got. It's like, it's time to rethink. So what happened in that moment of having this next generation, and I've thought about it as other generations have passed. My aunt just passed last week. And my dad had 2 sisters. So now my dad's gone, his sister's gone. There's one aunt left. She's now the elder of that whole lineage. So granddaughter brings in, opens the door. And then it made it very real for me that who I am today and my expression as a universal woman has this trajectory that goes through her. And I'm imagining with other grandkids, it's not like it goes through the grandkids as one. It really begins to go through the different expressions of these grandkids moving outward. But, you know, we think about leaving a legacy or making a difference on the planet, or, you know, what is that? And literally it became this direct thing that was so different.
You know, I'm thinking about, you know, it's, you know, my only example is my own kids. Like, I haven't had children, but it's interesting because one of the things I think when we're talking about radical cultural change and shifting things is there are certain things about that whole idea of legacy being related by blood that we have a lot of expectations about, a lot of, you know, I'm going to impart my knowledge and wisdom to this person because they are my blood relative and I need to share whatever it is with them. And then they're going to carry on the tradition. Like, a lot of people think that way. And the cool thing is right now is we have this opportunity to realize that, you know, in a lot of ways we've messed things up, you know, like our generation has messed things up on the planet in many ways. And that this younger generation, the children that are being born now, it's like they're coming in to a very different world than we did, just as we came into a very different world than our parents did, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the radical thing, because we've been talking about radical lately, and it's one of the themes of our show, is the radical thing to do is to realize, to get back into that beginner's mind, even if we are approaching queenliness and being, you know, have had life experience, just because we've had this experience, we have to remember to have that beginner's mind when we're looking at these kids and realizing they may do something completely out of the box and completely different than we could have ever imagined. And that doesn't mean that we don't share with them what we've learned. But I think we have to be careful not to put our expectations on them that they're going to take that information and just do the same thing we did. I don't want my kids to do what I did, certain things that I did, because I know that they're smarter than I was at that age, so, or that they have their own unique spin on things. And then other things, it's like, you might want to listen to your mom, because I actually had that happen, and here's what happened when I did it this way. So I think there's a combination of that.
Yeah. When I'm glad you brought that in, because at listening to this conversation, I can see how what I was sharing could be interpreted as me passing on information or passing on. And there's something beautiful about that 7 generations forward, and the indigenous cultures who passed it on via word, right? Like we share, because it's really important, the universal truths, the universal law, the universal whatever. For me, this intergenerational piece isn't necessarily that I want to teach them and have them carry on something. It really is, it's almost like backing up and saying, if I live in wholeness, if I live in my health and wholeness, if I am the fullest expression of who I am, the 7 generations forward have the same opportunity to be fully expressed as who they are. It's kind of like, if I stop the oppression here, then the future 7 generations aren't oppressed. If I stop the abuse here, if I stop so it's like that radical cultural change. Like if I really step into this conversation about igniting radical cultural change by being fully expressed as who I am, it gives permission to all these other people to be fully expressed, to bring their own unique voice and expression forward of what that is. Just like you said, very different than what we might expect. So I really have zero expectation of anyone like me teaching it and having it whatever that it is. Like I don't have that expectation at all, that I want something. But there's also this truth of the holographic information that comes from this universal field of consciousness. So, okay, big topic, whole nother show. We don't have time. This would be another really important one. So really understanding the universe in this way as universal women is that when we become fully who we are as women now, taking back our power, stepping into this balanced, harmonic relationship of gender and feminine, masculine qualities, because gender does not equal feminine or masculine. That's not, it's not like women are feminine. No, women have feminine and masculine energy. Men have feminine and masculine. So we're talking about reclaiming that, right? So when we look at, so I'll go back to that really big concept of who we are today is informing this collective consciousness on our planet, that when we fully express and be fully who we are, we're informing this universal field that really affects everything, all things. So it is, that would be a fun show to do, Sherryl. We'll have to make a note of it. But that's what I meant with that intergenerational piece too, of the 7 generations. It's like igniting this, and then it gives permission for all of this others to be ignited as we move through the generations here. Ooh.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's good to clarify, because I think that there's both. There are people who get that, and then there's others who, get really attached to have to carry on my legacy, and it's
Yeah.
a different energy. As you were talking, I was thinking about the things that, before I was saying that, my kids are smarter than I am. It's not that they're smarter, it's just that I shared with them as they were growing up. And I think that this is an important part of what we impart to those around us, is by example, talking about the things that I had to work through in order to heal certain parts of myself, to heal certain parts of myself as a woman. I talk to my daughter a lot about, which I know will be another show topic, about body image and how, I've struggled with dieting and how I felt about my body. And that because of that, she has her own, because she lives in this society, she has her own journey with it. But I see her as much farther down the road because I was very honest with her about my own struggles. And so I think that that's part of it as we're moving forward, to realize that as we shift ourselves, we are affecting, I like to see it as this matrix. We're affecting everyone in the matrix as we make these shifts. And so I think it's important for us to realize that that is part of how we create change, because we do affect each other. We're part of the whole of the matrix that we live within, the field that we live within. And so when we address these things and make the radical change within ourselves, then that affects everyone, the generations to come. It ripples out and is affecting even this conversation that we're having right now, whether people are listening to it directly and they're watching this or listening to it, or they then go and take some nugget that they heard and have a conversation with someone else, as a conversation with someone else, it's rippling out and bringing consciousness, is moving us into a place where we are able to, start questioning our own place in the grand scheme of, like, how the heck did we get here? How did we get into, how do we become unconscious in certain ways? And how can we bring consciousness to our own lives and therefore affect others?
Mm-hmm. I like the calling the matrix. That's cool. I think that's a good visual, that we all affect that matrix. So what was moving in me when you were talking to is bringing us back into what you started our conversation off with a friend who is grieving her youth. Is that what you said? Grieving her youth?
Yeah, the loss of her youth. Like, she's coming
Grieving?
toward the more the end of her life, but her life's not over yet. I mean, it could be over for any of us.
You could have 30 more years, 40 more years. That's a big lifetime, right? 30 more years or 40 more years. Or so when you say that, I think that's radical cultural change. That's a topic for us to continue to have this conversation of what the Western culture, anyway, has done with aging, and how we literally have diminished the value of aging women. Because I think that's an important conversation. When I was listening to you just now and thinking about how you raised Eden and how now she's a whole new expression of that, I'm thinking about how many of us, I'm thinking about my youth too. Like, what does that mean if I'm not youthful? Yesterday I did this. I was with my sister and I had said something about, we were talking about memory, and I said, and I'm going to have a birthday really soon. And I had said something about having a birthday, and she immediately connected, oh, you're aging in your memory. Are you going to blame your memory on your age here? Is that what you're going to do? And I went, no, no, not at all. And yet, look how that's popular culture, right? Like, if you have a memory issue, it's about your age. And just at the beginning of the conversation, you talked about aging women as invisible. And I think about the courageous new advertising campaign where they have the senior models of, just beautiful women with gray hair, and looking at that aging very differently. But this is a topic for radical cultural change. As men become wiser, men, and I don't know that it's a gender thing of male and female, but I think how we accept male and female aging is probably different too. And I just want to say, I think women really age gracefully. It's a beautiful thing for women to age. And let's stretch out that in-between stage from maiden, mother, crone, and then that in-between, because there's many of us baby boomers that are right in that right now on the planet. There's a lot of women, baby boomers down, that fit that stage of life.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as the in-between?
I feel like I'm like moving into this queenly, like I can feel it, like I'm on the brink of it, or I'm moving into it. It's an interesting thing. It's when, I remember years ago, it was a guy teaching us women's relationship seminars. And he said, we were talking about women and self-esteem. And I remember I was 37 years old. And I was like, well, I don't get it. Women have problems. I can tell women have problems with self-esteem. I don't know any women who don't. And he said, sure you do. And we all kind of looked at him, and he said, she's probably, I don't remember what age he said. She's probably over 50 or over 60. I don't remember exactly what he said. And she just doesn't give a crap what anyone thinks about her anymore. And then I started thinking about, my older aunties and great aunts. And I was like, oh yeah, they kind of are like that, aren't they? And so I think that that's part of it. It's like, and I can feel myself moving into that more and more, where I'm much more self-accepting of my imperfections. I'm much less, it's not gone, but it's kind of like, wow, what a lot of energy I've spent in my life trying to be perfect, trying to look a certain way, have my hair be just right, and my, all this stuff. Like, what a lot of energy I spent, and has it really brought me happiness? And so it's kind of looking at that part of life. And as I'm realizing that I've gotten more relaxed about things like that and more comfortable, I think that's part of this queenliness, where you're more of an observer and you kind of see how silly a lot of the rules are, about how to dress and all of that. It just seems silly to spend our time as intelligent beings, as beings who are capable of deep love and deep creative expression, that we're focused on how many wrinkles we have around our eyes, right? It seems like a waste of time. And I would not have said that not that long ago, I would have said it maybe from here, but I wouldn't have felt it. I guess that's more it.
Yeah, there's something about claiming that space in life too, isn't it? I remember when, this is maybe a good place to wrap this conversation in, that when I was a little girl, my mom was 29, and then she was 29, and then the next year she had a birthday and she was 29. And I always wanted my mom to grow up. As a little girl, I really wanted her to grow up and to be the queen and the crone. I really wanted a mommy that would be there and be that strong elder in the family. I really, really wanted that. So you can feel that, can't you? Yeah, the little girl wanted her mommy to grow up. And so when I turned 29, it was like, oh, I'm 29. Oh, like, wow, okay, here I am. When I turned 30, and I remember most of my friends like, oh, we're turning 30. Oh my gosh, 30, that seems so old. And when I turned 30, it was like, I'm older than my mom. I'm claiming 30. I'm adulting. I am accepting the assignment to be an adult. I'm adulting now. I'm 30. I'm on my way. And I don't know if my mom is still 29. I haven't asked her recently. I should ask her before her next birthday. Are you still 29 or how old are you now? But I'm really proud to really claim every year and to move forward into the fullest expression, that ever expanding, ever evolving expression of who I be at whatever age that is. So I don't know.
That's a
What
great
about
way.
you?
I I am seeing the value in myself as the wise woman, as the more relaxed, self-centered, calm being that it has always been there, but she's like she's in her heyday now.
Nice.
And I'm consciously looking and seeking to see the value in women of all ages. I have young women in my circle, who are younger than my daughter, and I have older women who are, um, more like my grandmother age, and just seeing the value of all ages,
Mm,
and, and what we can each bring to each other.
beautiful. So from my 1-year-old little granddaughter who is so amazing and adorable, on to my dear aunt who just passed and beyond. If you are touched by something in our conversation, leave us a comment. We would love your feedback, questions, comments, anything down below, and check out the information in that box below, because you'll find the links to where you can find Sherryl and I in our work in the world. And thanks for following us. Thanks for listening in. And we honor all women, all ages, all genders as well. And for all of you, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
Right now.
Bye for now.